Welcome back. Let's give you an update now from the sports desk. In fact, there's one big story that is dominating the headlines today, and that is the SAFA Elective Congress. It will go ahead as planned today, despite death threats that have been received by two delegates. The incumbent President Danny Jordaan, his deputy Ledwaba and Mahlobeng will face off for the top job. Those elections will be held at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg. Our reporter Timkulu joins us now to look ahead to what it is we can expect and what it is we have already experienced just in the lead up to it. A very good morning to you, Hloni. Of course, we're going to start off with this particular angle to that story. It's CAF President Patrice, I think, coming to SANEF. There is something that happened yesterday, that involved journalists, and it's something that is incredibly disturbing. Some would look at it as the silencing of journalists who are trying to do their job. Just help us get into that a bit more.
Good morning, Morena. So we are in Parktown for the SANEF AGM, where we expect CAF President Patrice Motsepe to address the AGM. I'm told that he will be speaking on stability and democracy in South Africa. And of course, because, since he's taken up the CAF presidency, he's been able to go throughout the continent. And even before, actually, when he was still canvassing for votes, I remember that he was still going throughout the continent trying to canvass those votes. And since then, he has been on quite a whirlwind tour, going around the different regions and just kind of seeing what is happening there. So he will be here to speak to the media and to speak to SANEF just about his experiences and taking, SANEF says that they want to hear from him what he has to say just in terms of media stability and media and democracy on the continent. They say that they don't just look at South Africa and how they can expand on that, but other regions as well, and see what they can learn from them. So that's why Patrice Motsepe will be here. But just speaking on what you mentioned about what happened yesterday. So we were called to this very hastily, randomly called media briefing yesterday, just hours before today's elective Congress. And yeah, I think obviously with SANEF having the AGM today, I think it's important to point out that we were prevented, or they tried to prevent us from doing our work yesterday. First of all, one of the officials was attacking journalists for asking questions of the President, Danny Jordaan. And when we were trying to film that altercation that then happened afterwards, we were stopped and we were told we need to get permission from a press conference that they themselves called. SAFA is a public body, so I'm not sure which permission we need to get to film them at something that they have called. So I don't know if he will address that or he will talk about that, but I know that he has been going around with the current SAFA President, Danny Jordaan. So we will see if we will be able to ask him questions about his thoughts on what happened, given that he is here today.
It'll definitely be interesting to hear whether or not he has an opinion about it and what exactly it is SANEF says, because of course SANEF is a representative of media in this country. But has SAFA itself said anything? Because we would imagine that they have been asked about what it is their officials were doing.
Yeah, just to let you know that same official, the SAFA Overberg President Mudiba, had another altercation with journalists before. This is what I heard yesterday, and someone had to apologize on his behalf. So this is not the first time that he tries to censor or try to kind of stop journalists or hinder them in some or other way for whatever reason. But SAFA themselves haven't said anything. We have raised it with them, our end of it, and they haven't said anything to everything that happened. They did kind of try and say we'll deal with it after the media briefing, because the initial disagreement happened inside the press conference, and then it continued when the press conference had ended. So they haven't said anything. I certainly haven't heard anything, because someone tried to stop me from taking a video, and they tried to push me back from doing that. So we haven't heard anything from them on that end.
Hloni, just from what it is you did manage to get before, you and the rest of your media colleagues were somewhat censored from doing your own jobs, is SAFA ready for today? We do know that delegates are receiving death threats and such, but from yesterday's briefing, was there an indication that SAFA is ready for what is set to happen today? Because this is arguably the most hotly contested SAFA election.
Yeah, I mean, in the past they have been contestations around the elective Congress, but nothing like what we've seen this time around, where we've had several legal battles before the Congress takes place, where there were attempts to try and postpone or delay the elective Congress because the other two nominees felt that they hadn't been given enough time. So there has been a lot of that, and it's played itself out right up until yesterday, because at that media briefing, the incumbent Danny Jordaan was hitting back at claims that they are not doing enough for football. This is an outgoing executive, so a new one will be elected today, and they were hitting out at those claims that they've done nothing for football, that there's no development, and a big talking point, a big message that was coming through was that they haven't done enough for women. And obviously that would have to do with the fact that one of the nominees is Ledwaba, of course. So there was a lot of that. But I do think that they are ready, because it has been a long time coming, and the fact that they've had these legal victories, in a sense that they can continue with this elective Congress, they are definitely ready. But whether things will go to plan, and you know, in terms of who will come out victorious, I think that's pretty obvious, given that we've seen this pattern before over two prior elective Congresses where the incumbent does win, and even though the previous one, you know, there were contestations around that. So I don't think there's a doubt about that, but it's just in terms of what will happen within that elective Congress. We know that there was an extraordinary Congress that was called last week. We hear that there were, you know, discussions there, or, you know, contestations even there as well. So in terms of readiness, they are ready, but in terms of the issues that will be discussed, in terms of the mood of the Congress itself, and how yesterday was just such a defense, there was a lot of defensiveness there in terms of just, we've done this, they say we haven't done this, but have reports been read? There was no women's football, there was no women's league, now there is, and that sort of thing. I think that may affect proceedings, but again, in terms of readiness, they definitely are ready, I would say.
Just before we let you go, Hloni, to your knowledge, when exactly can we expect to find out who is set to lead South African football for the next 4 years?
So the elective Congress gets underway at 11, and there will be, first, I imagine the opening remarks, and the part of it that is open to the media, so the plenary that would be open to the media, before they go on to decide who between the incumbent, Danny Jordaan, Ledwaba, and Mahlobeng will come out there, and just the voting of the NEC itself as well. So that, I guess, will come out later on in the afternoon. I know my colleague Tapo Tobane will be covering that event, and we should be hearing from him as well in terms of what does happen at the Congress.
All right, Hloni, thank you very much. We, of course, will leave it there with you for now, but we do know you and Tapo are said to have what is going to be quite a busy day. We have boots on the ground, because where South African football is concerned, it is an important day. Today, the leader of South African football for at least the next 4 years is set to be elected. We do know that it's either the incumbent, Danny Jordaan, who's been in office for the last 9 years. He was elected in 2013. We do know it could either be his vice president, Ledwaba, or, of course, SAFA president of Tshwane, Mahlobeng. It gets underway at 11 o'clock. There will be a part where media cannot attend. Of course, I imagine that's going to be when the voting takes place. But by the end of today, we should know exactly where our football is going. And I think South Africans will hope that it's going in the right direction, that whoever steps in, even though it's the person who's been in, is going to take our football to a whole new level, because we are desperate. We are desperate to have our football back among the big wigs of the world. But that is where we're going to be leaving it from the sports desk for now.